So since summer is officially and finally here, you were probably wondering how is your makeup going to stay while you are melting away. And in the summer season, I love glowy makeup, but I hate when it disappears after an hour in the summer heat. This routine is keeping my makeup sweatproof and fresh, while also being glowy without looking matte. Okay, first is probably the most important part, it's the base routine. And we need to start with a clear base. So I recommend to cleanse your face first, and then we need to do our skin prep. Even though we sweat a lot, we still need to prep our skin for the makeup. And so I'm starting with the moisturizer. I recommend a gel-based moisturizer and a more lightweight, water-based and not oil-based or anything heavy. And I'm using the numbuzin pantothenic B5 active soothing cream, and it is a lightweight moisturizer. It is gel-based, so it is really good for that. I noticed it works very well under makeup, and that's it. You could also use a primer. I recommend to use a gripping primer to lock everything in, but for me a moisturizer does it as well. You can of course use whatever you like and whatever's best for you. And the next step we can never leave out is of course sunscreen, especially now when the UVI is very high. Never skip your sunscreen. And even though Korean sunscreens are not very waterproof, I always recommend to use Korean sunscreen because they're so much more lightweight, not heavy, and just feel very nice in the summer because they are basically like lightweight moisturizer. And this is a really good sunscreen for makeup. I bought it to try it out and I have been loving it very much. It's the Goodal Heartleaf Calming Moisture Sun Cream. So if you still don't have summer sunscreen for the season, I really recommend this. And now of course we need to wait for at least 5 minutes, maybe even 10, for our sunscreen to be absorbed before we can start with our makeup. Alright, I think 10 minutes are over. And remember to always put your sunscreen on your lips as well. Okay, and so before I do anything else, I'm going to grab a powder. I use the Etude Zero Sebum powder, and it's a drying, blurring powder. It's not necessarily a powder for like a matte finish. I noticed that. It's more really like blurring and drying. And before I use anything foundation wise or concealer, I'm going to grab this powder, just a tiny bit, and I'm going to apply it on the areas where I tend to sweat, like my upper lip and of course my nose. I think my nose is like the worst part. I don't really sweat a lot on my forehead anymore, but I'm still going to do it. And I also sweat a little bit here around my nose. Not too much, otherwise your foundation is going to look bad and cakey. But this is also a good trick if you want like a matte base. Then I'm going to start with my base makeup, and I'm going to start with color correcting my under eyes. I use this Cream Pot concealer by Sheglam. It's the Rapid Retouch Cream Concealer in Nude. I always use this recently. Now comes the foundation, and since this is a glowy makeup like I mentioned, I don't use a matte foundation. If you have really oily skin, then of course use a matte foundation. Use whatever you like. And before I'm going to use foundation, I need to apply lip balm. This is a really good lip balm. I always use it and I always talk about it. It's the Catkin Whiffle Dance lip balm in C01. Now for foundation, I use this Revolution Skin Silk Luminous Serum Foundation in F3, and I also use this the Sam Cover Perfection Tip Concealer in Green Beige because I have an olive undertone and I mix this together with my foundation. This is also a little bit light, so maybe it will lighten the foundation just a little bit. Using it like this works for me, but if you have a foundation that's really sweat-proof and waterproof and whatever, of course go for these foundations. And I'm just going to apply it all over and just put it on the back of your hand and work in very light layers. It's always better to have quite a lighter layer of foundation when it comes to longevity, because it doesn't feel so heavy on the skin, and also it's a lot more breathable for your skin. And now I'm going to use this concealer. It's the Catkin Flawless Eraser Concealer in C03 Oat, and I'm going to use it because it's a very light concealer, but it does cover up my dark circles as well as any imperfections. So it's a very good concealer for summer and heat And what also is very important in order for your makeup to stay a very long time is to use a setting spray between your layers. So you could use it before your foundation, you could use it after your foundation. I'm going to use it after my foundation, but when I already have the concealer on. And I use the Lethal SpongeBob 16 Hour Later setting spray. You can use it after every layer you did or just whenever you like. And it does help your makeup products to mix well and set evenly together. And now I'm going to use it again. I used this layering setting spray like 3 times. One after my foundation, like I did before, with my concealer on already and sometimes not. Then after concealer, before like my blush and other products. And then again after powder, to be mixed in very well together. And remember, for concealer, use less. You could also layer it if the coverage is not enough for you. And so after the second layer of setting spray, I start with bronzer. Since it's a glowy summer makeup, I just have to use bronzer. And a good bronzer will always take your makeup to another level. And I really just can recommend this About Face bronzer. It's the Beach Freak in Beach Goth, and I use it on these areas. And this one is a bronzer that won't turn orange or anything. And if you have a lighter skin tone and you're kind of scared of bronzer, I recommend to use it. It's also so creamy and it blends in so nicely. You won't be occupied with a lot of blending when it comes to this bronzer. And now if you want to, you can again spray setting spray. So I'm moving on to blush, and I'm going to use a more red blush. I use this a pure Juicy Punk Jelly Blusher in RD01, and this red blush is very nice, especially for summer. I'm also going to put a little bit on my nose. I'm just going to blend it out, first with a brush and then with my wet sponge. I'm going over a bit. Now it's much more diffused and looks more natural. And for the ultimate glow look, I'm going to use, of course, the Charlotte Tilbury Beauty Light Wand in Pink Gasm. And this is new, I finally got it. And I'm going to apply this all over my cheek. I'm going to apply it first on my hand, and then I like really buff it into my brush so the product spread evenly. And this looks very blushy now, but I'm going to use my sponge again to like blend it out. But I blend it all over my cheek, and it makes my cheek area so glowy. And trust me when I tell you, this looks so beautiful when the sun hits you. Also a little bit on my eyelids. And now to set this cheek area even more, and in general, because powder products are a much better option when it comes to like sweat-proof and like long-lasting makeup. I do this step because I still want to use cream product, and I'm going to grab a highlighter, but it cannot be a very glittery highlighter, more like on the powdery side, which is actually, in my opinion, a highlighter that's not very good, like a good formulation, but I found a good way to use it. And for me it was this Too Cool for School highlighter. This one is also in my project pan. It's not available like this anymore, but this product is still available, but just a new packaging and maybe, I don't know, a new formula. I hope so, because this one is not very good. Like I mentioned, it's more powdery. Yeah, that's for my cheek area. Now it's still glowy, but it's not like very wet or anything, so if you sweat more throughout the day, it won't look so sweaty, wet and whatever. And now for setting powder, you need to choose the areas of powder placement wisely. So set the areas where you get oily and where you sweat the most. For setting my base, I use the Huda Beauty powder. This one is Cherry Blossom Cake and this one is Pound Cake. It is just that good. I'm going to use Cherry Blossom Cake just for my under eyes. And so for our eyelids, because eyelids get very oily, we are going to set our eyelids very lightly, not too much, with the same powder, and doing it like this, it won't crease. Now for the rest of my face, I'm going to use the Pound Cake shade, and I'm going to focus on my T-zone, and I always push in the product into the powder puff before I'm going to apply it, and I also push it in quite hardly, and that way it will really stay. And on my smile lines, because I do sweat here, and yeah, just the areas where you get oily and sweat. Everything else is not necessary because we still want a glowy makeup. And now it looks not very dry, but like blurred, and this is where I'm going to grab my setting spray again and spray it on top to like mix everything together again. overall I kept it light to avoid a cakey look. And next, for my nose contour, I always recommend to use like powder contour for the nose, especially if you have a nose that gets oily throughout the day. And I always just use the same. I use this Sheglam Hyperscope highlight and contour palette in Cool. I use all shades, and I'm going to do it how I always do it, real quick. Not going into detail because it will be too long. Matte contour for the nose is always something I would prefer, because even though I want a glowy look, it's not like I want my nose to be shiny or glowy. And using powder will help my nose not to get oily very fast. And if you're struggling with that as well, I recommend to use a powder product for your nose. It would be interesting to know if you prefer glowy or matte makeup in the heat. Let me know. And also there's like a highlighter in here, and I always like to apply it on my inner corners and brow bones as well. And now for my brows, because I tend to sweat a lot in my brows, and I always see like here that it gets shiny because of the sweat. So I need a product that really holds my brows into place for the whole day. And this very, very affordable product does exactly that. It's the Essence Brow Lift and Freeze Glue, and it is almost empty. It is literally like glue, and maybe a bit too much, because I do struggle to take it off even with an oil cleanser. Sometimes I really have to rub a lot, but that's when I know it really works. And I also chose a clear product, because if there's a chance I sweat, I don't want any like tinted product to be smudged or anything. And now for the eyes, I'm going to keep it more simple and more like bronzy and shimmery, and I'm going to use this Morphe eyeshadow trio. It's this one. It's not very bronzy, it's a little bit more smoky, but it's very fitting in summer. And for eyeshadow you don't really need any tip. The eyelid setting with the setting powder is enough, or you could also use an eyeshadow wet. It will create this clay-like effect, and it will make your eyeshadow very long lasting. And so I'm going in first with the matte shade, and also for these glowy looks I always just use first a matte shade and then always like a shimmery or glittery shade. And then also on my lower lash line, these are both shades. This one here is something between bronze and gray, and I think it's very fitting. I'm going to just apply it all over my lid. And so for eyeliner, it's always good to use a liquid eyeliner, and for that I'm going to use the Essence Liquid Ink Eyeliner. And liquids are so much better because they dry down and then they won't budge unless removed with an oil cleanser, and it will stay like the whole day. And then I added a little detail. I put on some eyeliner on my inner corners. I used this Pink Flash waterproof easy eyeliner in RD01. I like this effect, and I like to use like a burgundy shade because it looks much more natural. Make sure it's a waterproof eyeliner as well, because for the inner corners I noticed that eyeliner smudges much more on me than on my outer corners, because it gets a little bit oily here for me. If that's the same case for you on your outer corners, and if you tend to have more teary eyes, then of course use all waterproof eyeliner products. And then for my tight line and also like waterline, I like to use a beige eye pencil, and for my tight line a black one, and both of them are by Sheglam. It's the Smoke Clouds Kohl eyeliner. One is in Jet Set and one is in Map Out. This one is Map Out, this one is Jet Set. I really like them because they are really waterproof and they stay the whole day. And before you're going to do it, I recommend to use a Q-tip to dry your waterline. Then I like to apply one layer. I don't do my whole waterline, just up to the middle, and then I go in with a second layer, and this will make it very long lasting. And so then for mascara, when I use this Essence tubing mascara, and it has been my favorite right now. It's long lasting on me and easily removable with warm water. And I do use false lashes, so I'm going to apply my lash glue now. I use this Essence lash glue. How I make my false lashes last the whole day, I basically apply lash glue first on my lashes, and I do it here and also on my outer corner, basically where both ends of the lashes are. And while the lash glue is drying, I do my lips, and I recommend to use like lip stain lip liner. I use this one by Sheglam. It's quite new. It's the True Stain liquid lip liner in Pinky Promise. And these lip liners, they will stay for a very long time, and these are very good right now for summer. And you need to wait for it to set, and then it won't like budge and anything. And then I also like to go over again with the regular lip liner. This one is the Sephora 8-Hour Colorful Transfer Proof Lip Liner in 12. If you know them, they also won't budge or anything. So I applied the lip liner only in the center, and I also applied my lashes. Then one last step before the actual last step is to finish my lips, and I'm not going to use anything matte or whatever. I don't mind to reapply my lip products throughout the day, and I'm going to use a lip oil. I'm going to use the Essence Hydra Kiss lip oil in 11 Rosy Sparkle, and of course it has to be something with glitter in it, and this is very comfortable and very hydrating for my lips and looks absolutely beautiful in the sun. Now let's get to the last step of this makeup, which is of course fixing spray, and not setting spray but fixing spray. It has to be fixing spray. The difference between setting spray and fixing spray is fixing spray fixes your makeup, so you should use it at the very end of your makeup routine, and setting spray is like to mix your products well together. And lately for fixing sprays, I love to use the Catrice Ultra Last Fixing Spray. It's transfer proof, waterproof, it contains no alcohol and no perfume. Whenever I use it, my makeup stays on for the whole day. It won't disappear or it won't smudge or anything, and it will be my fixing spray for summer. And I like drench my face in fixing spray, and I let it dry completely. And that is the sweatproof routine. Now you can see how glowy the makeup is. And so that was my sweatproof glowy makeup routine. Let me know what's one product you cannot live without during summer. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel, that way you can support me. Also leave a comment so I know you watched the video, so please kindly do that, and I hope I'm going to see you in my next video.